It's football season, and you can now get almost anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a running back delivered, but you can get baby back ribs delivered. A strong defense? No. A strong deodorant? Yes. A six-pack of abs? Nope. Six-pack of beer? Yes. Get almost anything for game day delivered with Uber Eats, official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol 21 plus and in select cities. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, you know, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
The holidays are here, and the Home Depot has everything you need to stay connected with smart home upgrades. Whether you're keeping an eye out for the big guy or keeping an eye on your family, the Home Depot has you covered with great tech, like the Ring Indoor Camera 2-pack with advanced motion detection, two-way talk, and color night vision. Plus, get your smart home devices the smart way with free delivery. Get holiday ready with seasonal savings happening now at the Home Depot. Subject to availability, see homedepot.com/delivery for details.
Hey there, Duke fans, and welcome to episode number 651 of the Duke Basketball Roundup, the DBR Podcast. We are coming to you immediately after we record episode 650. So if you have not listened to that, go listen to that, then listen to this, or you can listen to this one first. It doesn't matter. The point of it is that we have 2 episodes for you, locked, chock, and full of content from this weekend. Jason was on campus. Jason Evans is with me. I am Donald Wine. I am your host for this episode. As I bring in Jason, I did want to kind of go back to episode 650 for just 1 second, because obviously we talked about Countdown to Craziness. And Jason, you were on campus, and what we forgot to include in all of that stuff we covered about Countdown is the fact that you went to the locker room after the game and we're able to speak with some of the players. So I'm going to lead with that. So Jason, start with that, and then we'll get into what else we are here for today.
Yeah. I just wanted to give folks a little flavor of me talking to several of the guys on the team. I want to note, by the way, that I was not able to talk to Cooper Flagg. I was, you may go, wait, Jason, you didn't talk to the biggest guys, the celebrities, so to speak, on the team. There was a horde of media around them, and I prefer to kind of be one-on-one a little bit with the players. So I go for the second tier.
Well, I
don't want to
Jason. No, Jason, it's a good point, because when I'm in the locker room, if ever I do that, it's the same thing. Because first of all, ladies and gentlemen, the locker room is not this big, massive Cameron type experience. It is very, very small.
It's small. Yeah.
It's small for a basketball team. It is even smaller when there's, sometimes 50 journalists in there with you. And of course, they're going to be going to some of the top tier players that they want the soundbite for their articles. Jason and I like to talk to the players who don't always get the questions, because from there, we can ask them some things that we want, that we know that you will appreciate. And we get a different perspective than you're listening to when you listen to Sports Center or some of your local feeds, because we will get the same kind of perspective, but from a different player. And I think that is important when we talk with some of these players, is some of these players are willing to talk to us, and there's no one else kind of talking to them. And we're kind of go, well, we have questions. And yeah. I think it's great that we're able to do that. But I also want to paint the picture that you're just not going to get to the Cooper Flaggs and the Kyle Filipowskis of the world every single time, because there's 9 million people who gravitate to them first. It leaves the whole rest of the locker room open. And if you're claustrophobic, you might want to go to some of the other players. And I think, again, they provide a great perspective about the game that you won't get, because everyone's going to be focused on the singular ones from some of the big stars.
Yeah, and I did kind of focus a little bit on the experienced players. I spoke to all 3 of our transfers who've been in college basketball for quite a while. And by the way, you'll notice we're going to play this out in 1 second. Sion James, come on, man! I tried to get him to brag a little bit about himself. No way, he wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it at all. He's all about his teammates. He's just so mature. Anyway, have a listen now to a little bit of the sound I got in the locker room talking to several of the guys after Countdown to Craziness. Hey, Con. So what was it like first time in front of that crowd?
It was awesome. Good to get a feel for it out there. It's everything it was cracked up to be. So glad I got to do it for the first time tonight.
How'd you feel? How do you feel like you guys played, or you specifically?
I feel like we got a lot of stuff to work on. Thought we did some good things. Obviously got a bunch of stuff to work on still as it's early. But I thought we did all right.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, Malik, Mason, you guys have done this kind of thing before. How did this one compare to Purdue and Syracuse? You go first.
At Syracuse, it wasn't as big of a deal as come down here. The whole day, you could just see the environment is definitely something different. Everybody's incredible here. It was a good time. Finally putting on that blue jersey and just, getting to compete with each other and just having fun on the court for the first time. So.
What about Purdue? You guys have a heck of a crowd there.
Yeah, we have a little fan day at Purdue. I think Duke here, they get a little bit more into it. They get, I think the lights and the music, the whole production of it was really awesome today. I've always seen it from afar, so it was really cool to be a part of it. And then most importantly, just being able to play with the guys, get another good day in of some good reps, getting up and down the court, just to help our chemistry. And today was a big step, being able to play in Cameron in front of a packed arena, and it was really cool to see the fans and all their energy. So I'm excited to play in front of them all year.
Malik, I want to know, you had to play against this big fella the whole time. I noticed even when you guys switched teams, it was still the two of you matched up. 7'2". What's it like playing against that much size?
It's definitely something different. Especially you don't see a lot of guys, 7'2", or being as versatile as Kaman, especially him being as a freshman too, which is incredible. It's very incredible, just to compete. And at the end of the day, just knowing that we're all on the same team, so it's even better for me because, looking back to having somebody on my team like that is just incredible. Instead of going out against them, every game or a big matchup, having them on our bench or, on our blue jersey just is incredible. So just, something good that we can have.
All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your play?
I would say 5.
Only a 5?
Yeah, just a 5.
How about you, Mason? 1 to 10, how do you rate your play today?
I thought you played better, League, than a 5. I was going to say myself a 6.5. So
you played better than that. So
thanks, guys. All right, Isaiah. I know you've been waiting a long time to perform in front of the crazies. What was it like?
It was amazing. It was just amazing.
How do you feel about how you played?
I think I played good. I just got to sharpen up my end on defense. That's really it.
You guys were hitting a lot of three-pointers out there. Both teams obviously taking a lot, but hitting a pretty good percentage of them. Is that going to be the attack this year, you think, for this team?
I think that we're a team that we can get whatever we want. We're not just a team that's going to have to settle on threes, even though we like to shoot them. I feel like we just got so much skill. We can do whatever we want.
Thanks, man. All right, it's Sion, my breakfast buddy. Good to see you again, man. I'm doing pretty well. Hey, I thought you were outstanding today. The defensive pressure that you're able to put on guys with your body, your physicality. Talk a little bit about how effective that was against the elite teammates you were playing against.
It was effective today. It helped me out. Like I was saying, they gave me a few of them, truth be told, and a lot of us were really sloppy. But I just feel like it's something I can bring. It's some way that I can really change the game. Coach Shire always tells us to carve out what we want and find the ways that we can impact the game, and I feel like that's one way I can impact the game.
Now, it's probably a lot harder playing against teammates that you know really well. You guys have been practicing together for weeks, so there are no surprises out there on the floor. Does that make a game like this maybe a little bit sloppier, not as smooth as usual?
Yeah, that plus the first time with fans, definitely not an excuse. Coach Shire will be the first one to tell you it's not an excuse.
Right.
But the reality is it is the first time that we're playing in front of this many people. The first time that this group is playing like this. That was part of the sloppiness. Plus, like you said, we know essentially what the other teams are going to run. It allows us to be a little more aggressive.
All right, so rate the team 1 to 10 based on what you've seen all year. How do you think the guys played tonight?
I don't necessarily want to put a number on it. We definitely weren't the best that we could be. We truly believe that we have a Final Four team, but we're taking it one day at a time. We're not even looking that far yet. We're looking at today's October 4th. We had an okay day. Tomorrow's October 5th. We got practice again. We're going to be better and better. So today wasn't our best day, but we're going to continue to improve.
What an incredibly mature answer. Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course. Good to see you.
Yep. So, again, thanks to the Duke Sports Information Department for allowing me and all the other reporters to get in there and chat with the players. The players are always very forthcoming and agreeable to talking to all the reporters who are in there. And I don't know that there was anything in that sound that was like revolutionary or changed your mind about what you observed, but I wanted to share it with everybody, both A, because you don't get to hear from the players all the time, and B, this whole weekend was I just got a lot of connections to and exposure to guys on the team, people around the team. It's great for us on the podcast because as you develop these relationships, it gives us a little more access, a little more information. Again, we're not insiders. We're not trying to break news. That is not our role here. I say to everybody, because I had a lot of people talking to me about the podcast over the weekend. I'm like, it is for Duke fans by Duke fans.
Mm-hmm.
And that is our role. Donald and I are having a conversation here with all of you, even though, you can only talk back via email.
DBR Podcast at gmail.com.
DBR Podcast at gmail.com. Exactly. But we're having a conversation. It's just, what we hope is that you're sort of sitting around having a conversation, but it is worth noting that we have been able to develop some sources and some resources. And as a result, the conversation maybe is a little more informed, a little tiny bit more informed than usual. And all that kind of plays out a bit here as we're going to talk about an open practice and some other observations I had while I was at Duke.
I mean, this podcast was started because you, me, and Sam decided, hey, we like talking about Duke basketball. Let's just record it as friends would.
Yep.
And the only difference was back then we didn't know each other when we jumped on the mic the first time, and now we're close friends.
Crazy.
So we get to have that rapport and that in discussion. But yes, information is key, and a lot of times, sometimes we get that information in a different space or just by the access that we are granted by Duke men's basketball, and we appreciate that. So, Jason, this episode, of course, we talked about Countdown last time. We're going to talk now about the Dribble for Victory Over Cancer, the event that you were able to attend, which looked like a great event. And then there was an open practice attached with that. After the break, we'll get into some recruiting news because there's a couple of recruits that were on campus. One of my friends you got to meet and hang out with, and then also some news is coming up later on, but we'll save that for after the break. First, the Dribble for Victory Over Cancer. Before we get into the actual event, Jason, bravo. Bravo to everybody who participated. Bravo to everybody who contributed to our team. We raised $11,584, Jason. That our goal was $10,000. We overshot that. Duke's overall goal was $75,000, and as of this point, they are at $133,500. So bravo to everybody who was out there. Jason, take it away. Tell us about Dribble for Victory and how everything went down there. It seemed like a really, really fun event, and it seemed like a lot of our podcast listeners were in attendance.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can't even tell you. This was surreal for me. So I'm walking up to the Dribble for Victory. It was a beautiful day. It was a gorgeous morning, like lower mid 70s or so. There was a women's lacrosse game happening. Duke versus UNC women's lacrosse game was happening. I stopped and watched for a couple minutes of that. Really nice crowd was there. So I walked from the lacrosse field over toward Wally Wade, where the Dribble for Victory was going to begin. I was wearing my Grant Hill jersey, so I would stand out. People would know. We posted to Twitter. I posted on the DBR boards that this is what I'll be wearing so people can find me. And the first folks who found me were Abby and Bud Reeves. They were super excited. We were chatting, and I was like, this is going to be so much fun. Great fans of the podcast, great fans of Duke basketball. They had their basketballs with them, and they were, we were ready to pound on it. And I was like, I don't know that I'm going to see many other people that know who I am. So Alfred Ndome from Ghana came up to me next. He's been at Duke since 2019. He's getting some kind of engineering grad degree, doctorate, master, something like that. Something super impressive that I don't even begin to understand. Really smart guy who's just become a Duke fan in the past like 5-6 years and loves the podcast. And at that point, I was like, this is cool. I've met 3 people. They're chatting with me. I am all set. Donald?
Wrong.
The floodgates opened. I kid you not. And this is not bragging. This is just like wonderment at the community. At least 25 different people came up to me and were like, "You're Jason. Oh my God." There were people taking pictures with me left and right. This one guy, I didn't get his name. I apologize. I don't have all the names, people. I'm sorry. There were too many of you, and I was just enjoying meeting all of you. This one guy comes up. He's got his 4 daughters. I think all 4 of them were probably under 7 or 8. He's like, girls, gather around the podcast guy. And he's taking pictures of me with his daughters. This was hysterical. It was amazing. It was so funny. And by the end of Dribble for Victory, I was hoarse. I had spent the entire time talking to various fans of the podcast, there were some people there who don't listen to the podcast as much, who know me from the Duke Basketball Report bulletin boards, from the forums, and they were there to chat with me some. But I'm telling you, I'm seriously, like, I was hoarse from talking so much. But the big moment I wanted to mention was this. John Shire's up on stage, the whole team's behind him, and he's announcing the top fundraisers, because of course the point of all this is raising money to combat the terrible, horrible thing that is pediatric cancer. And he mentions the team that came in first. They raised more than $50,000. It was a team centered around one child who is currently battling pediatric cancer, a young boy, and I am so glad that they came in first place and that they raised the most money, because it clearly was important to this boy and his family, and that's a great thing. So Shire's got his little piece of paper, and he goes, in second place, he goes, we got a podcast here. He goes, the Duke Basketball Roundup. And Shire's a little confused because, newsflash, John Shire doesn't listen to the podcast.
Right.
He's like, we got a podcast here. When he says we've got a podcast here, the crowd erupts. Donald, I'm serious. It was like crazy. People are just going, yeah. And I screamed, I'm like, hell yeah, we got a podcast. There were so many people who were aware of who we are and cheering us on. I was talking to Sion James. He and I walked for a bit during the dribble because we know each other. And he said, as soon as Shire said, we got a podcast here, see, I was like, I know that's Jason. I know who that is. But it was a really loud cheer. There were a lot of people involved in it. They gave me a little plaque to thank us for being one of the top fundraisers. It was an amazing event. A lot of fun. Everybody, dribbled around for about an hour. The players, by the way, stopped along the route. Like, you'd been dribbling for a little bit and suddenly you'd come across one of the players, and people would stop and gather, take pictures with them and things like that. It was really well designed by Duke, a really well run event with one exception. So there was barbecue. I think City Barbecue. I think that was it. There was barbecue that was provided, and they had plenty of barbecue for everybody, but they had one guy serving the barbecue. When I tell you there was a long line for barbecue, because, by the way, they had like 300 people at least. This was there were plenty of people there. Dude, there was like one guy serving the barbecue. We were waiting in line forever. The line, can't you have more than one dude putting pork on a plate, please? Next time. They had plenty of volunteers. Now, I know it's an art, piling that pork in just the right way on the bun. Pulled pork, there's craftsmanship to it, I guess. But maybe find one more person. Could we have had two lines instead of one? Because it took forever to get but the pork was delicious, by the way. So
I will say, never keep Jason never stand between Jason and his barbecue. And no. that's the lesson learned here, ladies and gentlemen. But Jason, I think it's great that everybody was able to come out. I think it was awesome that so many people recognize the show and are listening to the show. And I think you and I have talked about this. The still surreal thing is that when we're talking to someone else in a place and someone recognizes our voice and they go, "You're the guy from the podcast," and I go, "Yeah, me? Like, you talking about my podcast, my little show?" So it's very funny to still get that. It's still surreal, but it's also
when I was
humbling and appreciated.
When I was in the open practice, there was a guy who was seated near me, and I was talking to some folks around. Eric Savage, who's a huge, great Duke fan. I was talking to some folks, and this guy leans in. He goes, "I recognize your voice. You're that dude from the that dude from the podcast. That's who I am." Yeah. I was like, yes, I am. Thank you very much. And then he keeps on leaning in, like trying to listen in on my conversation, like he's part of that. I'm like, I'm kind of talking to my buddy here, but it's fine. It's cool.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. And again, great cause. 133,000 total raised. It's an excellent job by everybody in the Duke community, even those in the UNC community who tried to sabotage our little link there. Also, funny thing is, it was I don't know if you know this, Jason, but it was sabotaged again late Friday night. Our tiny URL goes to some like political survey now, but
What?
we were able to find the link and make the donations that we needed to. So again, $11,000 raised by our team, 133,000 overall. Congratulations, great job, everyone in the Duke community. Now, Jason, attached to this was an open practice for both men's and women's basketball, and of course, you were in the building. You were able to watch a lot of this practice, and I saw you put a couple of things on Twitter on some of the things, and people kind of going back and forth.
My Twitter exploded, buddy.
I believe it. I believe it. But let's start with this. You mentioned some of the guys who you think are going to be the clear starters, and you kind of think that there's a top 7 or so that's kind of separated themselves from the pack from what you saw in practice. So give me those, start with that and kind of work your way into what you saw based on that, 7 that you said is going to be the ones that kind of separated themselves so far in this early season.
Yeah, and I've gotten a pretty good bit of pushback on this from people who say, no, it's too early to make these kind of decisions. And oh, this guy is too important a player. Duke recruited him. He's too important a player for him not to have a role. Folks, I'm just telling you what I observed, because my focus when I went to the practice wasn't as much on who's playing well or how they're playing. It was on observing opportunities and observing the way the coaches ran the practice. Because look, if Harris or Khan or Isaiah Evans are going off, that can be a fleeting thing. I mean, we've heard reports about that kind of stuff, but you don't know that happens all the time. And watching one practice, you can be tricked by one guy who's having a good day one time. So I wanted to see what is John Shire and his assistants, what are they doing with the team? How are they using players? Because that reflects what Shire has seen from months of watching these guys, summer workouts, preseason practices. And I want to know what the coaching staff is thinking about this team, not just what I can see from 90 minutes of watching the random play, much of which was drills anyway. So with that in mind, it is clear that there are starters. There are 5 starters. These, John Shire, in almost everything they did that was sort of 5-on-5, that wasn't clearly a drill, there were 5 guys who started out in white. And those 5 guys, Tyrese Proctor, Caleb Foster, Con Knipple, Cooper Flagg, and Man Common Malawach. It was always the same. It was always those 5 guys at the start of any scrimmage, situational, whatever it may be. Those 5 guys were together. And it even extended to, there were plenty of times where they would sort of divide up, and like Coach Jay Lucas would take those 5 starter guys to center court and be instructing them about something. And Chris Carrawell was with the rest of the team that was wearing blue down on the baseline, talking to them about something else. I mean, this was a clear separation, but there's more to it than that, because the first guy who would rotate in with those 5 was Sion James every time. And it happened reasonably quickly. Like, you could tell they needed to get Sion reps with the other starters. And sometimes he came in for Khan. Sometimes he came in for CFOS, by the way. And then they would a little while after that, they would bring in Malik Brown. And Malik Brown would join with those guys. And whenever he did that, Common Malawach would sort of go to this. And it's worth noting that there were occasionally, like, CFOS or Khan might go to the blue team. But for the most part, when those guys in white got subbed, they would just go to the sideline. They literally wouldn't even play with the blue team. They would step off the court, and that's when a Spencer Hubbard or a Stanley Borden or a Neil Begovich would come in.
So I think it's interesting to note, right, when we talk about basketball, most people focus on who are the 5 starters, because in your mind, you think the 5 starters are going to be the ones that get the most playing time. But in other sports, you have a guy who may start, but may not get the bulk of those minutes at that position, right? Like, for example, in baseball, the Detroit Tigers have made it this far because they have one starter who goes 9, he can go 7, 8 innings if he wanted to, right? Cy Young guy. But then the other 4 guys in the rotation are what we call openers. They come in for 2 innings. They start the game, but they only come in for like 1 or 2 innings, and then they go to the bullpen for the rest of the time. And I'm wondering, people might be focused in on the 5 starters part, but what you mentioned was kind of interesting in the fact that Sion James is coming off the bench quickly, right? He's one of the guys that he's going to end up getting a lion's share of the minutes, even though he's not starting. So for people who focus on the starters, it's interesting. You have to figure out how these guys are going to be playing at the start of the game, and also in those last 4 minutes, who's going to be on the floor in that last final minutes of a crunch time situation. And sometimes it may not be the starter, right? Sometimes starting may not come with the 20 to 30 minutes that you would expect it to be. And again, you kind of have to think about that position. And in that position, right, at the wing, who is going to, get the 40 minutes that wing position could get. Khan may start, but Khan may not get 30 minutes. Sion may not start, but he might get 30 minutes, right? It could be a Mason Gillis there, right? There's a lot of possibilities here. And in this early season of training camp and practice, that's what the coaching staff is trying to figure out. Who's going to, starting is one thing, but the fact that Sion James is coming off the bench very quickly leads me to believe that they go, hey, he's okay with not starting, but we also need him in the game for a long stretch of time because he's a guy that's going to carry us in a lot of things that we want to do.
Yeah, and it's worth noting regarding Sion that he played a ton of point guard. In fact, there were times when he was on a team with Tyrese Proctor or Caleb Foster, and he was still playing the point guard. Sion brings the ball up court and initiates the offense a lot of the time for this Duke team. I really feel like that he and Tyrese and Cephas are gonna. Those 3 guys are taking all the minutes at the 1 and the 2, and those 3 guys I think are very interchangeable at the 1 and the 2. The controversial thing I have to say that again, there are people who weren't at the open practice who have said, no, I think you're wrong. You must be wrong. I'm here to tell you that Mason Gillis just didn't. He only put on the white uniform once, and it was very fleeting. It was for like maybe a minute of time. And, I've heard anecdotally from people who are close to the program that Shire is sort of feeling like he's got 5, 6, 7 guys who are beginning to separate themselves from the rest a little bit. And I feel like if Gillis is number 8, I know we've talked about, is this the year that Duke goes 8, 9, 10 deep? And I want to be clear that Mason Gillis, Isaiah Evans, Darren Harris, even Patrick Ngong, but I didn't get to see Patrick play. These guys are quality basketball players. These are guys who have a big future in basketball and can be valuable to any team out there. And depending on injuries and other things, they could be very valuable to Duke this year, or certainly in the case of the younger guys, extremely valuable in future years. But I'm telling you, Donald, if Duke was playing in the NCAA tournament tomorrow, I really think that Mason Gillis does not play very much. I think that Isaiah Evans and Darren Harris don't play at all, perhaps. I think that it feels to me from watching this practice, by watching who was doing what and what combinations Duke was putting together, that John is pretty much focused on 7 guys, that these 7 guys feel like they've separated themselves. That's just my gut. And if you had to ask me over or under, does Mason Gillis play, 8, 10 minutes a game? Give me like 10 minutes, double digits. Does Mason Gillis play 10 minutes a game in ACC contests, in big games? I think I'm probably taking the under.
So I appreciate that perspective from, especially, again, you were at the practice. I was not. So you have a different perspective than I do. I can only go based off of, kind of what we've gathered, the intel that we've gathered, and also just, our experience from watching basketball games and watching Duke perform. I think Mason Gillis, I'm not ready to sell him down the river as a guy who's going to get less than 10 minutes a game yet. But again, I didn't see anything at practice. But what I will say is this. There's one reason why he's here. He's here because he wants to get over that hump and win a national championship. And he is the one guy on this team that knows what it takes to get to that mountain.
Absolutely.
And look at the summit and figure out how to scale it. And that may not be quantified in playing time, right? That may be something that he's doing in practice. It could be his leadership. But also when he's in the game, remember, he was the Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year and shot 46% from 3. This is not a guy who's going to go quietly into that good night. He is going to continue to scrap for whatever minutes he can get. And he's the savvy kind of veteran that when he is on the floor, whether it's 8 minutes, whether it's 18 minutes, whether it's 38 minutes. He will figure out a way to become involved and be productive. And sometimes that plays to a disadvantage in the form of minutes, right? Like if I know that this guy, whenever he comes in, if I give him 4 minutes, he's going to give me 4 solid minutes, then I'm going to give him 4 solid minutes. I'm not going to extend it necessarily to 8 because there might be other things I need to play. But as you mentioned, there are so many things that can come up over the course of the season where what you are saying can change, right? Foul trouble could put Mason Gillis into the game for extended periods of time. Injuries. Hopefully we don't have to experience this, but every good team has those things where people are out for a game or two and you have to make sure that the next man is ready.
And injuries are the thing to me that look, obviously, I dearly hope they don't happen. But yeah, I think, if my over-under is off, I think injuries could be a major reason why.
Yeah, and then also the competitive drive, right? These guys aren't going to sit there. The first game, the guy who's going to play 6 minutes is not going to sit there and go, 6 minutes? Well, I guess I'm resigned to playing 6 minutes a game. No, they're going to try and go for 7 next time, and that's going to be earned in practice. That's going to be earned in their production on the floor during these games. I'm not worried about Mason Gillis in the competitive aspect of things. He's going to push for as many minutes as he's going to get. And in the process, I think also we've talked about him, and the one word that a lot of people have described him as is a glue guy. Glue guys find their way onto the court. Point blank, period. And he will find his way into the court, be productive when he is. And he may not be the guy who's going to get 13, 14 points a game, right? He's not going to be the guy coming in shooting on every possession, but he might be the guy that just locks down his defender to the point where you kind of go, hey, remember that wing that was killing us in the first half? He kind of disappeared in the second half. What happened? Oh, right. Mason Gillis was in for 8 minutes and he checked him out of the game personally. So I think those are the little things that you need to worry about. And when Jason, when you say, hey, he's not going to see the floor, that's right now. And we have the right, everything has the right to be changed for various reasons, but it does mean that, yes, we are going to get to a point where there will be 7, maybe 8 guys that are the guys who get the lion's share of the minutes. And as of right now, you're saying that Mason Gillis will not be one of them based on what you saw in practice. And that's a fair observation based on how we know practices go and how they divide those opportunities up.
Yeah. Let me get to a couple other things that I saw at the practice. First of all, tons of focus at this practice on running and fast breaks. They were doing specific fast break drills as like situational scrimmages. It's clear this team wants to run. So they would do like this scrimmage kind of thing where the white team and the blue team, and one of the coaches would like take a shot, and as soon as the ball comes off the rim, they are taking off. Or even sometimes the coaches didn't take a shot. They just like toss the ball to someone like it's a turnover, and guys are racing the other direction in an effort to score. And by the way, after they would score or not score, they would then race the other direction with the other team trying to fast break it. But they did that for a lot of the time. That is clearly a focus on running. I should note, it was pretty funny. John Shire was the one who was taking the shot that coach is supposed to miss. And he hit a couple in a row. Mm-hmm. I was like, coach still got the shooting touch.
Shoot or shoot.
Yeah, so. And then Emmanuel Dildy started taking the shot, and he was missing them. So, Dildy would politely clang the ball off the rim for the players. But I thought it was just very interesting how much focus I saw on fast breaks. And then I wanted to specifically shout out a drill they were doing. It was kind of a one-on-one drill. The big men were at one end of the floor, which is really just Borden, Begovic, Malik Brown, and Man. And then the other end of the floor was all the wings and guards, and they were in a line. And it was essentially a one-on-one drill. You would go one-on-one with a guy. One guy was a defender, one guy's on offense, trying to get in the lane and score, or maybe you shoot a pull-up. For the most part, trying to get to the rim. And after you had played offense, you would play defense. The one rule was if you scored, you stayed, and the defender has to stop you to be done, to move out of the line to the back of the line. Con Knipple. My man knows how to use his body. So he's matched up against Cooper Flagg. Cooper's on defense. Con has the ball on offense. And I'm like, believe me, my eyes are wide. I'm like, I am watching this. And Con promptly took him in the lane, used his body, used his bulk. Khan is not like sculpted. He's not Sion, but he has a lot of bulk to his body. And he leans into Cooper at one point, and suddenly Cooper's falling backwards, and Khan gets an easy shot. I'm like, okay, Khan scored the first time. Khan scored 4 in a row on Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg's supposed to be like, unreal defender. And he is a great defender. But that's how good Khan is at angles, at getting himself in the right position, at using his body and his strength to get the shot he wants. So a little bit later, Khan's matched against Sion James. I'm like, oh, no. Now you're not going to be able to do it. Now you're not going to be able to. Sion's too strong. You're not going to be able to do it now, Khan. Khan scored 4 in a row again. I was like, and a couple of them were like really great use of angles, using the backboard and stuff. Man, Donald, I was hooting and hollering in the stands. It was impressive stuff from K2.
Look, and this was what, 18 hours, 12 hours after Countdown to Crazes, where, on the last pod we talked about, it seemed like, some people talked about he disappeared.
Not even. Yeah. Countdown was in the evening. This is not like
noon?
It's like 14 hours, something like that.
Yeah. So again, this is what the difference a day makes, right? That the guy that we saw, heard about in practice, you got to see firsthand what people have been talking about and why everyone's saying he could be one of the best players in the ACC this year. And this one of this, rare gem finds that John Shire has. And I think, again, these are all going to help us throughout the game. There's going to be points where, you want to give the ball to Khan and say, hey, Khan, get to your space, get to your spot on the floor and break this dude down and get these 2 points. Cooper, hey, get in there and stop this guy. Sion, get in here and lock down this guard. There's going to be a lot of these situations. And what the point of some of these drills are to make them comfortable with these different situations that could occur in the grand scheme of, 10 guys and 3 referees being on the floor at the same time with, tens of thousands of people looking at them. I think that is great because, Khan being able to get to a spot is going to really help us. And as much as people are talking about him, it's going to be even funnier knowing that they can't guard him after all they've learned about him, right? Oh, this guy's going to do this old man game and get to a spot. Old man YSCA game is forever undefeated. Like there are guys at the gym who are torching young kids and they don't know why. It's because they can get to their spot. And if you can get to your spot in this game, you will have a very high percentage of success.
Yeah. 2 other quick things I wanted to mention. The first one is Man is so quick off the floor. I mean, he's 7'2" with a 7'6" reach, 7'6" wingspan, I should say, so he's super, super long, but he just gets off the floor so fast. There was one play, and I actually got a picture. If you go to my Twitter feed at Jason Duke Evans on Twitter, there's a picture I posted of this one play that it was just like, it was again, one of these plays where I went, wow, Cooper Flagg, they were doing one of these fast break drills, and Cooper Flagg is going up for a shot. He's literally right next to the rim, and he's about to lay it in. And as Cooper's in the air with his arm extended, Man's still on the floor. Like, he hasn't jumped yet. But suddenly he explodes, and he almost blocked the shot by Cooper Flagg. It was not a block shot, but he just got up so fast. He contested it so quickly. It was jaw-dropping. And I think about what that guy's going to do to people who aren't used to playing against someone that big and that fast. He's just going to be a terror inside the lane. And the other thing about Man I wanted to mention was the tip back offensive rebound. He is great. You saw a little bit of it in Countdown. I saw a lot of it in the scrimmage. And I heard from people who've seen other practices that he does this all the time. I'm telling you, Donald, Duke's going to get, I don't know if the number's 4, 5, 6 or so extra offensive rebounds a game, which, by the way, would be a huge. If you get an extra 5 offensive rebounds a game, that's a monster. We're going to get extra offensive rebounds because he is so good at going up with his long arms and tipping, like the other guy's about to grab the rebound, but he tips it away and just tips it back over his shoulder to an area where more than likely than not, the offensive players are going to be. So you're going to see, Khan and Tyrese and Sion and CFOS essentially getting offensive rebounds because Man has tipped them to him. I saw it happen so much in this open practice that I'm like, he's doing that in games. Now he'll pick up some fouls, and he's going to be limited by foul trouble. I wonder if we're going to get more than maybe 25 minutes a game out of man. But that offensive rebounding, and that's, by the way, something that Brian Zubek was
used to. Yeah,
I mean, Duke kind of won a national title on that. As much as anything, the offensive rebounding in the 2010 team was why Duke won that national title, and I'm getting that same kind of vibe from man here. And then
Malik Brown can do the same thing. And if you think about it, that 2010 corollary, Brian Zubik, Lance Thomas, both were great at doing stuff like that, or at least tipping getting to a position Dennis Rodman style where they can tip the ball to themselves or tip it out to somebody. And I think the thing about the tip out to somebody else is that they're going to know where their fellow players are on the court. Common is not going to need to look right at somebody. He's going to know that like Cephas is at the top of the key or Tyrese Proctor's on the wing or something like that, and he's just going to tip it in that area without looking. And then before you know it, everyone turns around and sees, one of our guards with the ball going up in the air for a 3-pointer. That's where we can backbreak teams. If we get those offensive rebounds and turn them into quick points before they even hit them, those are going to be the ones that are going to make that other team want to call a timeout.
My last thing, and this is going to be a weird one. You're going to be like, really? I want to talk about Stanley Hubbard.
Let's go. We don't talk enough about Stanley on this show, so go ahead.
I'm just going to tell you this. Whatever your minutes projection is for Stanley Hubbard, increase it. He was far and away the first, like, I don't know if you want to call them walk-ons or whatever, because technically they're not, because a lot of these guys have scholarships now. He was far and away the first of these guys to come into, to sort of break into the rotation, whatever you want. He's the 11th man. That's what I'm saying to you, is he's the 11th man. And you probably would have thought it would be Neil Begovic or Cameron Sheffield, both of whom, have played bigger roles on their teams before they came to Duke than Stanley Hubbard has. But I actually noticed a couple times that Shire was like, Hub, get in there. Like he wasn't an afterthought. He wasn't just it's time to put the walk-ons in. I'm not saying he's in the rotation. He's not ahead of Darren Harris or Isaiah Evans. None of that silliness. But, like if the walk-ons are typically going to come, it's a blowout and they're going to come in with 2 minutes left. I think Stanley Hubbard comes in with 3 or 4 minutes left. I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to say. I don't know, but a man can handle the ball. Can really handle the ball. I was impressed with Stanley, and he was more in John Shire's mind than you might have thought.
So, Jason, I'm here to throw cold water on the Stanley Hubbard to average 18 minutes a game or 10 minutes a game.
I did not say that. Do not put words in my mouth.
I'm just joking. But I'm here to sell that part of it. I will say this, and we both love Stanley Hubbard. We love all those guys who are on the end of the bench. I want Stanley Hubbard to play in 40 games this year, because if he plays in 40 games this year, that means we have blown out 40 opponents, and that or at least we've had some sizable leads where we can get them the playing time that they deserve. So I hope he is in every single game. Having said that, I'm not ready to anoint him the 11th player on there, but I will say this, Jason, he's the most experienced player we got, right? He has been here for 5 years, and he is the only guy who understands what it's like to play with Paolo Banchero and Cooper Flagg. Like he's the bridge. And so I'm really appreciative of the fact that he can come in and show guys what John Shire wants, right? He may be 5'8", and he's by far the shortest guy on the team. Everyone else is 6'5" or taller. But the fact that he has learned over these few years to be able to handle himself in the court means that, hey, garbage time may not be so garbage, right? Like, it's not going to be just guys chucking it up. It's going to be guys running offensive sets. And again, making sure that this team from start to finish has the competitive drive and desire. Now, do I think he's coming in at 4 minutes of games when we're up by 20? Maybe not. Maybe it might be closer to 2. Jason and I are feel free to disagree, right? It's one of those we'll see. It might be part of the stats game. Sam might be writing all this down. So it might be one of those things. Number of Stanley Hubbard minutes might be a thing. We'll see. But I do think that Stanley Hubbard getting better Neil Begovic getting better, Cameron Sheffield getting better, Stanley Borden getting better helps this team improve, because
No question about it.
the last thing a team wants is after they've gotten dusted by a team is to look down on the bench. You see the walk-ons, the guys at the end of the bench come on, and they go, crap, now these guys are coming on. Now these guys are going to compete. That's what this is about. And I think the great thing is we have a couple of leaders that are going to be on the floor, but even at the end of the bench, we have some veteran leadership in Stanley Hubbard, and we hope that we get to see that on more than one occasion this season. Let's pause it right here, Jason. First of all, thank you for going to that open practice and giving us some of that bit of that information. Let's take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about some recruiting. Jason got to hang with a couple people. We may hear some things right after this.
It's football season, and you can now get almost anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a running back delivered, but you can get baby back ribs delivered. A strong defense? No. A strong deodorant? Yes. A six-pack of abs? Nope. Six-pack of beer? Yes. Get almost anything for game day delivered with Uber Eats, official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol 21 plus and in select cities. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
The holidays are here, and the Home Depot has everything you need to stay connected with smart home upgrades. Whether you're keeping an eye out for the big guy or keeping an eye on your family, the Home Depot has you covered with great tech, like the Ring Indoor Camera 2-pack with advanced motion detection, two-way talk, and color night vision. Plus, get your smart home devices the smart way with free delivery. Get holiday ready with seasonal savings happening now at the Home Depot. Subject to availability, see homedepot.com/delivery for details.
All right, we are back, and we turn our attention to the recruiting trail. There's a couple of things that are coming up, and also over the weekend, there were a few recruits that were in town for Countdown to Craziness. And Jason got to hang with a couple of the parents, including one of my close personal friends. But Jason, first of all, let's talk about Countdown to Craziness and the three guys that were there, and talk about, what you learned by mingling around at the Wad Duke.
Yeah. It was very nice. I got to spend some time. Spent a little more than an hour having drinks and the such with Jarrett Lewis, Cayden Lewis's father, who you connected me with because you went to high school with him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, great guy. We had a really nice time talking about Cayden's recruiting and Duke and what they're seeing from the different schools and the such. Toward the end of our conversation, I guess about 15-20 minutes before we were all done, Nate Ament's dad, Al Ament, he said Big Al came up and was chatting with us as well. He was like, he's such a nice guy. I got to Big Al, this so down to earth, kind of a soft-spoken guy who wants to ask you questions. He doesn't want you asking him questions.
Mm-hmm.
Someone like that. He's a teacher. He truly seemed unaware that his son is top 5 prospects. He's like, yeah. So then he went to Las Vegas to play in some tournament. I'm not sure what. I'm like, yeah, like the NBA, All-Star game, yes. And he's like, yeah, something like that. I mean, totally unassuming guy. He kept on asking questions about the podcast, and just really a lot of fun to chat with and get to know Big Al. But I had a great time talking to Jarrett as well. Jarrett Lewis, Cayden Lewis's father. Very honest with me, very revealing. He talked about how surreal this is.
Yeah.
For folks who don't know, Cayden's final 3, he's choosing between Duke, UConn, and Kentucky. I mean, come on.
And I will say, and I've said this on this show, Cayden Lewis was cut from his middle school team. His first high school team didn't want him, and now he's one of the top players in the country. Like, that's the work ethic that he's put in. But I mean, talking with Jared over the years about this, he's just, especially this past summer, he's just like, how quickly this all came to be where it is nothing short of surreal. It's one of those, things. I know how proud of Cayden I am, but I know how proud of him he is. And I know you met him. It's very palpable in how he speaks about Cayden and how proud he is that he's even in this position to really have an impact on his life.
Yeah. And he talked about that work ethic. He talked about the fact that, like coming into the summer, late in his junior year of high school, Cayden was probably not even a top 100 recruit. And Jarrett talked about the fact that they knew he was going to pass a bunch of guys because he was going to put in the work necessary to do that. And he is now, look, I know he's like right around top 30 or so. I think that's crazy. I think that he's an even better player than that. I mean, you can tell from the fact that Duke, UConn, and Kentucky are all talking to him about coming in and being a major player for them next season. That tells you all you need to know about what the expectations are for a Cayden. And and when a guy advances from around top 100 to top 30 in the span of a few months, that's a dude they don't plateau at 30.
Right. Oh, it's still going up because I've seen some of the newer updated rankings, and some of them have even put him closer to 20. And it may go from there. Again, a kid who had a few scholarship offers when he was at the beginning of his junior year, and then he's one of those kids that had every blue blood going after him, and now he's down to 3.
Right, exactly. I will tell you openly that I don't believe that they have made any decision yet. I know that they had a very nice visit, that they talked extensively about how great the facilities are at Duke and how much fun they were having. And I saw them repeatedly over the weekend. They were going to walk with me for Dribble for Victory, but they couldn't because the Duke strength and conditioning coach
Coach Will
appointment.
Yeah.
And
I will say this about Cayden. He got to Durham on Thursday for his visit. His visit didn't begin until Friday, but he got there on Thursday. The first thing he did was work out. First thing he did is he went into the gym at the Cameron and worked out with Jace McCain, who's Jared's brother.
I heard about it. Yeah.
And was like, and I was like, yo, man, the first thing you could see the city, you could kind of tour the campus. He was like, let me go work because that is the reason why I'm in this position. And I'm going to continue to keep working to keep getting better. That's a kid you want on any team, and especially in a Duke uniform.
Yeah, I get the impression. I'm not sure if they've released it publicly, but I believe Cayden will be deciding in the next month, early November. I don't want to break any news if that's not official or anything, but his dad did say when they're probably going to decide, and it should be early November. I got the impression from Al Ament, from Nate Ament's dad, that they're probably not that close yet. I think they have a few more visits they want to take to figure some things out. But in terms of making a decision, Donald, and by the way, I should note, I mentioned Shelton Henderson was on campus as well. I saw him several times, didn't get to talk to him or his parents. So I got no inside intel there. But as long as we're talking about guys making decisions, the big news that came out just a couple days ago is that Cameron and Cayden Boozer, the Boozer twins, Carlos Boozer's sons, are going to announce their decision on Thursday. I'm sure Donald and I will be along to give you all a special podcast when that happens. For folks who've been hiding under a rock, Cameron Boozer is considered the number 2 player in the class behind AJ Divansa. But a lot of people think that he may have a more immediate impact. He's a power forward who will just go out there and score a bunch of points, grab a bunch of rebounds, make a bunch of smart plays, and help you win the game. That's just what Cameron does. And his brother Cayden is considered one of the top 2 or 3 point guards in the class. An outstanding distributor, a really good defender, a very smart player, not the greatest shooter. He would be a top 10. He's like a top 20 recruit. He'd be a top 10 recruit for sure. It'd be a little bit better shooter. Then again, Trey Jones and Tyus Jones came into Duke with reputations as guys who weren't great shooters, and we know how that worked out. So, I will tell you, Donald, I asked a lot of people who were a little bit in the know, what do you think the Boozer brothers are going to do? And every single person gave me the same answer. They're like, I got no idea. They go, it's Duke or Miami. I'm like, yeah, I know it's Duke or Miami.
Yeah, and Florida is like 3rd team officially still on the list, but Florida's out. It's between
Duke or Miami. Yeah.
It's my 2 alma maters. The great thing for me is that I win. But I will say I want to win even more because I want both of them in a Duke uniform to craft their own legacy, which is something that we've talked about in the show, crafting their own legacy separate from that of their dad.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add other than I don't know. I will tell you that I was hearing some really good stuff a few weeks ago. 2-3 weeks ago, I started to get very, very confident that we were going to get the Boozer brothers. that confidence has waned, not so much because I've heard that Miami's in the lead or anything like that. Confidence has waned just because everyone I'm hearing from says, I don't know.
No news is no news in the recruiting world, and that can have your confidence kind of wane a little bit. Jason, I will say also that with Cayden and Cameron, they have both done a incredible job in this day and age of keeping their decision close to the vest. They have been one of the best I've seen in that regard. But it's down to Duke of Miami Thursday. I will be driving somewhere, but we're going to make sure that whatever happens, if he does choose Duke, you will hear from us on that. That is for sure.
Yeah, and one last little note that I wanted to put out there so folks are aware of it. I did get to interact a bit and see some stuff from the Duke women. I saw them perform at Countdown. But as long as we're talking about recruiting, I did want to mention that Kara Lawson and the Duke women brought in a very, very significant recruit on Friday. Emily Skinner is her name. She's considered like top 5, top 7 recruit in the class. She's a point guard, although a big-ish point guard who's a very capable rebounder and can do a lot of different things on the floor. She is a big time, a very, very big time recruit for Kara Lawson. There's little question that the quality of the team and the quality of the players has stepped up over the past several years as Kara Lawson is bringing this program more and more to where she wants it to be, where she expects it to be, which is to be in the top 10. I was impressed with a bunch of the players that I saw playing in the women's open practice. And I think that, we don't have time necessarily to get into it. And I know that our audience is more of a men's basketball audience. I'm telling you, check out some Duke women's basketball. They're going to be good this year.
And we mentioned when the schedules were released a couple of weeks ago, or I guess that was last week. Time is a flat circle. But when the schedule was released, they have a really difficult schedule this year. They have a lot of great games. And as we've discussed, the popularity of women's basketball has grown and grown and grown, and especially on the college side. There are a lot of great teams out there. The ACC women might be the best conference in basketball, period. And I'm not talking about just the women. I'm not talking about just the women. I'm talking about the men. I'm talking about NBA. The ACC on the women's side is going to be absolutely bonkers this year. And Duke is mentioned as one of those teams that can compete. So I think everyone should really tune in, check them out. They have a lot of great players, and Kara's recruiting is top notch. And the fact that she is, been doing with USA Basketball and that exposure has really opened up a lot of people to getting back to that prominence that they had, in the late 90s, early 2000s as a team to be reckoned with, and hopefully competing for ACC championships and hopefully doing well in the NCAA tournament. So we will continue to check out the Kara squad as they continue this year. Let us end it here on episode 651 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Thank you as always for listening. Again, go back and check out 650. 651 is here. Hopefully we have some good news later on this week as we hopefully get a commitment from the Boozer twins. But until then, for Jason Evans, I am Donald Wine, still here in Seattle, but going to go home eventually. We'll be back later on in the week. But until then, check us out, dbrpodcast@gmail.com if you have questions. But right now, it is time for the Duke Band to play us out and take us home.